All right, everybody, I'd like to start today with our first unit. So let's get into prehistoric art, or the Stone Age is what we're going to start with. When we start, I wanted to talk first about some common questions about dates. This is an essay that I found by Dr. Beth Harris and Dr. Stephen Zucker that kind of explain some of the things that we're going to see later on. When we look at images of different types of objects and artifacts from the past, you'll see different ways to describe them, and this kind of goes into some of those. I'm going to just start reading it to you because I think it's kind of interesting. How long has our calendar been around? We are writing this on 12/26/12, or Wednesday, December 26, 2012, traditionally understood as to 2012 years, give or take a few, after Jesus Christ is believed to have been born. But if Jesus used a calendar, it would not have been the one that we use. Our calendar is called the Gregorian calendar and was instituted by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582. There are many other calendars. Quite a few societies have used calendars linked to the years their kings ruled, and there are numerous calendars beyond the Gregorian calendar that are still in use today. For example, 2012 equates to 1434 to 35 in the Islamic calendar, and 5772 to 73 in the Jewish calendar. Both are lunar, based on the cycles of the moon. BC or BCE. Many people use the abbreviations BC and AD with the year. For example, AD 2012. BC refers to before Christ, and the initials AD stand for Anno Domini, which is Latin for in the year of our Lord. This system was devised by a monk in the year 525. A more recent system uses BCE, which stands for Before the Common Era, and CE for Common Era. This newer system is now widely used as a way of expressing the same periods as BC and AD, but without the Christian reference. According to this system, we count time backwards, before the Common Era, and forwards in the Common Era. Circa. Well, let's go back to counting time backwards. It says, according to this system, we count time backwards before the Common Era and forwards in the Common Era. That means that if something has a higher number in BC or BCE, it's further away. And if something has a lower number, it is closer to us. So it ends at 0. It works backwards until it gets to 0, and then AD starts with 0 or 1. Okay. We also see circa. Often dates will be preceded with a C or a CA. These are abbreviations of the Latin word circa, which mean around or approximately. We use this before a date to indicate that we do not know exactly when something happened. So C 400 BCE means approximately 400 years before the Common Era. Hope that makes sense. Why 2012 is in the 21st century. Now, we live in the 21st century, that is, the 2000s. Similarly, when we say the 20th century, we're referring to the 1900s. All of this is because, according to the calendar we use, the first century included the years 1 to 100. There was no year 0. And the second century, the years 101 to 200. Similarly, when we say 2nd century BCE, we're referring to the years 200 to 101 BCE. Within our calendar, we also have a tendency to find portentous meanings in the millennial years, that is, in the years 1000 and more recently 2000. Now, I thought that was a pretty good essay and covered everything. But in the very next couple of minutes, I was looking at some slides and I found another way to document things, and that was BP, before present. Now, before present years is a time scale used mainly in archaeology, geology, and other scientific disciplines to specify when events occurred prior to the origin of practical radiocarbon dating in the 1950s. Because the present time changes, standard practice is to use January 1950 as the commencement date or epoch of the age scale. The abbreviation BP has been interpreted retrospectively as before physics, That refers to the time before nuclear weapon testing artificially altered the proportion of the carbon isotopes in the atmosphere, making dating after that time likely to be unreliable. In a convention that is not always observed, many sources restrict the use of BP dates to those produced with radiocarbon dating. The alternative notation, RCY-BP, is explicitly radiocarbon years before the present. So that might explain some of the images that we see and some of the dates that we see behind them and what those things all mean. I hope that cleared it up a little bit. All right. Well, let's move on. Here is a example of different ways things could be dated just for today itself. The day that I put this PowerPoint together, Monday the 17th, August 2020, is also known as all of these different dates in different places. But let's get into what we want to talk about today, which is the Stone Age. Now, the Stone Age is broken down into three different eras: the Paleolithic era, the Mesolithic era, and the Neolithic era. Now, the Paleolithic era, or the Old Stone Age, is a period of prehistory from about 2.6 million years ago to around 1,000 or 10,000 years ago. The Neolithic era, or New Stone Age, began around 10,000 BC and ended between 4,500 and 2,000 BC in various parts of the world. In the Paleolithic era, there were more than one human species, but only one survived until the Neolithic era. The Paleolithic era was also an age of purely hunting and gathering, but towards the Mesolithic period, the development of agriculture contributed to the rise of permanent settlements, and the later Neolithic era or period is distinguished by the domestication of plants and animals. When we look at Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic and just break down those words, we can see that they all share common roots. The lithic, lith, or litho, lithos. That is the common root word in all three of those things. And lith, if you've ever got into printmaking or anything, you'll know that a lithograph is a type of printing. It's a type of printing that uses a stone. Litho is a Greek for stone. And so when we see these prefixes in front of it, we can kind of break those down too. Paleo means oldest. It's the oldest. So Paleo is the old stone era. Mesolithic is middle. Meso is middle. And then Neolithic is new. So that is why those things are named like that. So if you see anything with a lith in there, you know what it's talking about now. All right. Well, there's a blank screen. I don't know why that's there. Well, today we are going to be looking at let's see if the image will show up. I'm looking for a rock here. Where's the image of the rock? Thank goodness. There is the Maccapan's pebble. All right, so back on track. Okay, I didn't freak out. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I wanted to talk to you about this rock, this pebble. This pebble is important. Well, kind of important. When we look at it, if you look at it in this image right here, you can see that it looks kind of like it kind of has a face on it. So it was just a smooth river stone that was found not in a river though, up inside of a cave a couple of miles away from a river, very high in a cave where they said, hey, this must have been brought up into this cave by someone or something. When they found all of the remains, they thought it must have been brought up there by a person. This was a river stone, so it didn't belong in a cave, but they thought when they looked at it that they knew why it was in that cave. If you look at that stone, and let me zoom it out a little bit so we can see it a little clearer there. When you look at it, you can see that it looks like there is a face that was carved into the stone. But the face was not carved into the stone. After they've done some testing on it, they found that that face kind of shape was made not by a human hand, not by carving, but instead it was made by just erosion within that river. But when they believe that the people who found this 3 million BC, or 3 million years, ago, found it, and they found it in Makapansga, South Africa. They saw the stone. They saw that it looked like a human face, and so they brought it up into the mountain with them. And they think that was the earliest evidence of man recognizing animal or human forms in the natural environment. First time we see some abstract thinking. They saw that stone, they looked at it, they thought that it looked like a human face, and so they took it with them. So that is the first time we think that humans, or I'm using the term human kind of lightly, saw that stone, thought that it looked like a face, and so they brought it with them up into their mountain cave. Now, 3 million years, that's a long time ago, and we didn't actually start producing artwork 3 million years ago, but we did at least maybe recognize that stone looked like a face. And so that is important when it gets into the sort of the development of humankind. Speaking of the development of humankind, this is what those humans look like who found that stone and who lived in that cave. They were the Australopithecus africanus, and they were an extinct species. They lived about 3.5 to 2 million years ago in South Africa. Here's some artifacts or remains of them and some illustrations of what they might have looked like. So they were our distant relatives. But they weren't producing a lot of art